Welcome to the debate. Today we are submerging ourselves quite literally into the dense, pressurized waters of the Bathysphere Project. And if you're one of the many listeners who have tracked this 5-album narrative arc from Violent Hearts all the way to Quantum, you know this isn't just a collection of songs, it's a labyrinth.
It is. It's a maze.
It is a maze of surreal imagery, recurring motifs, and storylines that seem to, well, they defy easy explanation. We've had a ton of messages this week, people just writing in asking, can you please just tell me what fractal frost actually means?
Or, what is the dark cloud? Is it a weather system or a feeling? It's deeply ambiguous.
Exactly. It's compelling, but it's confusing. And that's the question we need to answer today. What kind of story are these symbols telling? We're going to try to decode the core iconography, the bathysphere, the dark cloud, the frost. My position is that these are all symbols of internal psychological states. They represent human choices, failures of intimacy, and, the breakdown of the self.
And I take the opposing view. I argue that you can't psychoanalyze a tsunami. These symbols aren't just feelings. They are manifestations of external, systemic pressures. Environmental hazards, media distortion, survival mechanisms in a reality that's become structurally incoherent. This isn't about how people feel. It's about what the world is doing to them.
Then let's dive in. I want to start with the object that names the entire project, the bathysphere. When I look at this vessel, particularly in the album Specificity, I see the ultimate symbol of avoidance. We have the character Carlos, we know the story, he makes a promise to Mayu, a promise of connection. And yes, he's bullied, the pressure is there, but his response is to get into that sphere and just leave the planet.
But you have to look at the nature of that pressure. You're making it sound like he just had a bad day at the office.
The context matters, of course, but the choice is singular. The lyrics and Ocean Floor really haunt me here. One fate destroys the other. The bathysphere isn't just a vehicle. It represents the choice to disconnect from humanity because the emotional weight just feels too heavy. It's a symbol of emotional cowardice, really, disguised as exploration. Carlos isn't exploring, he's fleeing. He builds a shell because he's too afraid to be soft.
I see where you're coming from, but I think that reading places way too much blame on the individual, and it ignores the hostility of the environment. You're looking at Carlos in specificity, but you have to look at where the bathysphere appears first in Violent Hearts. In that music video, the diver descends into an environment defined by what the analysts call proximity without safety.
But he chooses to go down. That's the critical point.
He chooses to survive. I mean, look at the visuals. The pressure in Violent Hearts isn't just stress. It's atmospheric. It's crushing. We see images of the ocean floor where overlapping waves destroy each other. In a world where the crowd itself is lethal, the bathysphere is the only thing keeping that crushing weight at bay. It's not a getaway car for cowards. It is a pressurized containment suit. It represents the necessity of a barrier when the world itself is incoherent. If the environment is toxic, sealing yourself off isn't avoidance. It's the only rational response.
If it were purely a rational survival mechanism, though, why does it cause so much damage to the soul? This is what I struggle with in your interpretation. When Carlos leaves, the lyrics describe him drifting, always drifting. He realizes that to win anything at all was to lose everything for good. I mean, that sounds like deep regret to me. It sounds like he realizes the safety of the bathysphere was a trap. He isolated himself so thoroughly, he lost the ability to be human. He became a capsule in the void.
Or he realized that in a system designed to crush you, there is no winning in the traditional sense. You either drift or you drown. The tragedy isn't his choice. The tragedy is that he was forced to make it. But I want to pivot to the second major symbol, because I think this is where your psychological reading really struggles to hold water. Let's talk about the dark cloud.
I actually think the dark cloud proves my point perfectly. Listeners ask what it is. To me, it is clearly a manifestation of resentment, unresolved trauma. Look at the song Dark Cloud. In Specificity, the spoken word section explicitly links it to depression. Life entire was a dark cloud. It was the knuckles clutching. It's about a person who cannot let go of their own grievance.
But it literally floods the city. I mean, it destroys infrastructure. It's not just a cloud over a cartoon character's head.
Metaphorically, yes, it destroys. But look at the character arcs. Mayu, who starts as this gentle figure, goes to the realm with the nebula and gets infected. And what happens? She doesn't just get sick, she becomes vengeful, destructive. That is not a weather event, that is a personality shift. It symbolizes how unresolved pain transforms a person into a source of harm for others. And then you have Tannen. He tries to fight the cloud, but he gets infected because he engages with it too directly. It's a warning. If you stare too long into the abyss of your own resentment, you become the abyss.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. You make it sound like a mood disorder, but have you considered the physical evidence in the quantum videos? Specifically the track Torrent. The dark cloud isn't just a bad mood, it causes a physical flood that drowns the entire city. And when Tannen becomes infected Tannen, he isn't just angry, he glows with molten orange and violet fractures. This is a biological rewrite.
It's a visualization of internal burning. We use phrases like burning with rage for a reason. The visuals align perfectly with the emotion.
I think it's more than that. It's viral. In quantum, we see the rise of the TFIF movement. The future is fractured. The cloud and the fracture, they work together. To me, it represents accumulated distortion or ideological infection. It sweeps people away regardless of their personal resilience. You have strong characters like Ropetalk struggling to rescue people from this flood. I mean, if the dark cloud were just personal resentment, you could therapy your way out of it. You can't therapy a flood. It's an environmental disaster.
You're dismissing the agency of the characters too quickly, though. In Parasite, the lyrics say, "I'm still talking to your host." That implies the person is still in there, buried under the infection. The host has to invite the distortion in, or at least leave the door unlocked.
Or it implies the system has become so parasitic that individual agency is being suffocated. The host is trapped. But let's move on, because this is the one that really confuses listeners and where I think our interpretations split most drastically. Fractal Frost and the character of Winter.
Fractal frost is perhaps the most tragic symbol in the entire project. To me, it clearly represents emotional numbness. It is the ultimate dissociation.
Numbness. That seems reductive for something so complex.
Well, look at the album Winter Within. The character Winter is a barista, grounded in the mundane. She's surrounded by people like Summer, who's this solipsistic, self-absorbed guy. And what does the song Summer Without Spring say? Waiting for my moment to disappear. Winter isn't fighting, she's retreating. The frost is what happens when you calcify your heart to survive the pain of being unseen. It's a state of warmth without growth. She freezes herself to stop feeling the pain. It is a suicide of the emotions.
See, I come at it from a completely different angle. I see the frost as strength, as clarity.
But consider the lyrics in Snowblind. No reason in your winter, snowblind, and brittle choice. It calls the choice brittle. That doesn't sound like strength to me. It sounds like fragility disguised as hardness. It's a defense mechanism that ends up trapping her in isolation, just like the bathysphere trapped Carlos. She becomes unreachable. A frozen statue is strong, yes, but it isn't alive.
You have to look at the finale, though. Quantum's still surface. This is the end of the entire arc. The quantum comet is falling, crystals are raining down. What does Winter do? Does she run? Does she break?
She closes her eyes.
Exactly. She closes her eyes. She refuses to observe the chaos until she is ready. And when she catches that crystal, she transforms into Fractal Frost. Willingly. This is not numbness. This is integration. It's discipline.
It looks like death. She fades to white.
It looks like stillness. The track is called Still Surface. In a world that is incredibly noisy, remember the dense visual noise of the Static Man? Winter represents the capacity to hold contradiction without turning it into violence. The frost isn't about being dead. It's about being structurally sound, a protective structure, a way to maintain interior coherence when the external world is screaming. She becomes a structure that cannot be shaken. That is the ultimate victory in this setting.
I am just not convinced, because that ignores the cost.
You call it coherence, I call it the end of human vulnerability. If you become frost, you can't be hurt, sure, but you also can't touch. You can't connect. It's the same error Carlos made, just in a different form. One fled to space, the other fled into themselves. It's just a colder version of the bathysphere.
But maybe in the world of quantum, being human in that traditional vulnerable sense is no longer a viable survival strategy. You have to evolve. And that brings us to the forces that require such extreme measures. The antagonists, the vector dragon and the static man.
I think antagonists is the right word. But again, I see them as projections. I view the vector dragon, particularly in what just happened, as a symbol of narrative inflation.
Narrative inflation. Can you unpack that?
Yes, it's the delusion that we are all main characters. The song Protagonists spells this out. Everyone is living their own legend. The dragon is the manifestation of that ego. It's the final boss that everyone wants to fight to prove they matter. And who releases the dragon? Carlos. Conflagrated Carlos, burning with rage. He releases it to destroy the Dyson sphere, the symbol of human progress. It represents the destructive power of dramatic, self-centered storytelling. The dragon is pure ego.
That fits Carlos, certainly. But then look at the static man. Because the static man interacts with the dragon in a way that completely upends that theory. If the dragon is ego, the static man is the anti-ego.
The static man is the observer. He watches.
He's more than that. He's a signal processor. He's made of dense visual noise, literally static. In the video for Rogues, the static man doesn't fight the dragon. He transforms into the fractal beast, and he absorbs it. He becomes the entangled monstrosity.
Which sounds horrific. I mean, entangled monstrosity is not a heroic title. It implies corruption.
It sounds like a system update. If the dragon were just ego, absorbing it would make you a narcissist, but the static man absorbs it to save the solar system. This tells me the dragon isn't just a story or a feeling, it's a systemic error, a vector. The symbolism here is about media saturation. The fracture creatures and the dragon represent the breakdown of shared reality. The resolution isn't defeating the monster. You can't defeat a glitch, you have to integrate it. The static man processes the noise and creates a new stability.
But at what cost? He becomes a monstrosity. Even the title Rogues implies they've gone off script. I'd frame it differently. The static man represents the loss of the self entirely. He becomes a vessel for the noise. He saves the world, maybe, but he loses his humanity in the process. It's the ultimate tragedy of the project. To save the world, you have to stop being a person. You have to become part of the machine you are trying to fix.
Or you have to stop being an individual in the way we used to define it. The entangled monstrosity becomes a new sun. It sustains life. It's ugly maybe, but it works. It's adaptation.
Let's step back. We've traced these symbols from the ocean floor to the moon. And I keep coming back to the human element. While you see systems and glitches, I see people. The biosphere is our desire to escape our obligations. The cloud is the pain we refuse to process. The frost is the wall we build to keep people out.
And the dragon is the story we tell ourselves to justify it all?
Precisely. The project is a warning about what happens when we let these internal states dictate our reality. Look at Carlos. He ends up conflagrated, burning with rage, leading a movement called The Future is Fractured. That isn't a system malfunction. That is a man who let his resentment eat him alive.
But Carlos didn't burn in a vacuum. He burned in a world where truth is overwritten. So I conclude that these symbols create a vocabulary for survival. The bathysphere and the frost are technologies, literal or psychological, invented to survive a world where the environment itself is hostile. They aren't just feelings, they are the architecture of a broken world. You can call it tragedy, but I call it engineering.
But the boat becomes a coffin. The mask becomes a face. That's the tragedy. The tools we use to survive end up defining us.
And that is the ambiguity, isn't it? The project doesn't tell us if these are good or bad solutions. It just tells us they are the only solutions left.
And I think that's where we find our common ground. We both agree that the Bathysphere Project refuses to give us a tidy answer. It maps the terrain of harm, as the analysts say. It shows us the cost of survival.
Right. It encourages the listener to view quantum not as a solution, but as a state of non-collapse. All these symbols, the burning man, the frozen woman, the infected lover, they all exist at once. They aren't resolved. They are just coexisting.
They're still surface, they are suspended, and perhaps that is the most human thing of all. To hold all these contradictions, the fear and the frost, the rage and the resonance, and to just keep existing.
To catch the coin in the air and never let it land.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the abyss. We hope you found some light down there, or at least a better understanding of the darkness.
Or at least a sturdy bathysphere.
Until next time, this has been The Debate.